Hi, my name is Harmony, and I am in dissonance. So, a question I get asked a lot is, where is your home? And it's a difficult question because my mom's from Hong Kong and my dad's from mainland China. I spent half my life in Thailand in an American based international school of all things. So, when people ask me that question, my answer is, well, the earth. So, yeah, I never really noticed cultural differences until much later on, though, because I always grew up with it as the norm, which means that not until the pandemic it was invisible to me. And during the pandemic, there was a rise in popular Asian YouTubers such as Uncle Roger and Stephen He that made satire about cultures in America and in Asia. And from those videos, I realized that people made questionable decisions such as going into their houses with their shoes on. So then that was basically a cultural epiphany for me, as I never realized that people lived in such a different way. But first, what even is culture? I like to define culture as the unique way each of us view the world based on the environment we grew up in. And culture isn't just what country you were born in or what city you're from. It's also your social economic background. It can be your family religion and so on. Now, before talking about the internet, I would like to clarify a few of the cultural comparisons that I will be making. So, I'm going to use Eastern and Western a lot to refer to mostly East Asian and American cultures since I've interacted with them a lot more. And there's also going to be a lot of references to Japan because my generation really likes Japanese animation and music. Now that that's clarified, we can go on. So I'm a member of what we consider Gen Z, which means I grew up with the internet right in my face 24/7. And with how the internet became so popular during my lifetime and how translation apps became so much more accessible, these perspectives could all communicate very, very easily. And the internet is pretty big. There are more than 6 billion people online with more than 5.6 billion social media accounts. That's 75% of the world population. Now, internet does affect how you view things. So, for example, even website design of the same website can be different across countries. Over there, that's Yahoo Germany, and that's Yahoo Japan. Yahoo Germany is much more minimalistic, while Yahoo Japan's much more informationally abundant and it's very dense. But oftentimes, these cultural differences isn't as harmless as website design. Oftentimes, it could be a language difference, a difference in what is considered polite or not polite, and so on. And these can clash. The internet is full of haters. I've often seen instances of someone saying just a single word wrong and then getting attacked by thousands of people for just that single word. And it could be because of a language barrier, it could be because of their home culture. And on the internet, behind that mask of anonymity, we just seem to not be able to accept that people are different from us. We seem to just forget that they're real life people behind those screens. So then, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with diversity? Well, a common reaction in every era of history has been to just get rid of it. Create groups that are like yourself. That's the reason we had family clans, and then now we have art clubs and sports teams and so on. And to a certain extent, this helps us succeed because if we are with people who are similar to us, we can more easily work with them to make something good. But this also limits our potential for what we can create. As, for example, an art club tasked with designing, let's say, a soccer stadium might not be able to understand the practical requirements they have to meet. So then, a question you might be tempted to ask is, well, how do we balance diversity and similarity? But on face value, this question is good. But when you look more deeper at it, it's it's a hard question because even what is considered diverse or not diverse is different across cultures. And with how the internet permeates everything we do these days, it's it's impossible to get rid of diversity. So then we should instead rephrase this question as how can diversity exist in a way that unites people? Because the fact is that we don't have to avoid diversity if the right methods are employed. Dissonance, aka diversity, can create harmonies, which is the beautiful relationship from many different notes stacked together. If we just have one thing at a time, then it gets boring. You only are limited to one note at a time. And a common example of harmony is the internet itself and the examples of connections and interactions all across the internet. So here are a few that I found across my life. First, Hatsune Miku. Hatsune Miku is a Japanese computer voice model, and she basically works as an instrument where you can use her voice to create music. And she has concerts as the mascot all over the world, in London, in America, in Asia, of course, and so on. And what she does is she becomes the spokesperson for modern musicians to make music regardless of genre, regardless of language, regardless of culture, all assembled into one voice. Recently, a psychological theory of motivation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, was made into a mini game within Minecraft. And this was done by the YouTuber Schizoman on the Hermitcraft SMP. Now, what this does is it connects important psychological awareness to the entertainment culture of younger generations. Because they're not there to watch psychology, they're there to watch Minecraft. But in doing this, we are able to teach the younger generation something new in a way that appeals to them. And then there's Limbus Company. Limbus Company is a Korean game where you play as Dante from Dante's Inferno, except your head is a clock, and then you're teamed up with various characters from classical literature, both Eastern and Western, such as Herman Melville's Moby Dick and Yi Song's The Wings. And all of these works are mostly homogeneous. They consist of a single culture. But it is the creator of Limbus Company putting all of these together that creates something new, something diverse. But then, how do we make sure that all of these combinations result in something actually good instead of just being something that clashes, that sounds bad? Well, I've often seen it clashing before. For example, my parents, they might sometimes disagree on certain cultural aspects due to being from different parts of China. And if you think about that, how much more would it be for couples from different sides of the world? The fact is that dissonance doesn't always lead to harmony, but just like how my parents' arguments can eventually be resolved through enough talking, we can find ways to unite people, even if they are different. And here are a few requirements I think we need to be able to do that. So, first, we need the agreement to harmonize. If we place random people who disagree in a room together, all they'll do is argue. So that's why we need an existing relationship or a common agreement to, for example, understand each other better. We also need knowledge about each of these groups because if we don't know about who we're working with, we can't really work with them. And knowledge about different cultures can expand our horizons of what we can do. And then finally, we need acceptance from all sides. When I visited Japan after learning more about Japanese culture, I was honestly terrified because I was so scared I would break some sort of unspoken rule. And also heard about cases where, because Japan and China were on opposite sides of World War II, I thought that I would be automatically hated the moment I stepped into the country. And because of this fear of being not accepted, I couldn't even enjoy going there. I couldn't harmonize with the culture. And this is why we need to both be accepted and accept each other, or we won't ever get along. However, harmony is often intentionally discouraged. And a prime example of this is with the internet algorithms. So on entertainment sites, the algorithms work on the basic concepts of show more of what keeps you on the site, show less of what pushes you away. And what this does is your existing ideas are amplified and confirmed, which could lead to extreme actions. And this is also the reason behind the recent rise in short form media like YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok, where information is presented in a way that's very easy to consume. And what this does is it could lead to you having less nuance in what you believe in. Seeing a 1 minute short about something that you aren't familiar with can lead you to believe it unconsciously, even if it isn't true. And to prevent the spread of polarizing views and internet misinformation, what internet algorithms should do is they should establish recommendations that are different from your usual preferences, maybe even highlight it as, let's say, an open mindedness promoting video. But because of the risk of people clicking off or using another social media website, it's very unlikely that this will happen. So then we have to ask a different question. What can we personally do? A few of my favorite moments in life has been to learn about different people through the internet. For example, I was talking to a stranger and then I realized that cream puffs were a thing because they said it was their favorite food. I never really noticed cream puffs existed before. But that's a different story. The internet is a great place to learn about different people because it's an easy way to access views that are different from yourself. But oftentimes, it's it's difficult for us to even accept these views because if someone disagrees with us, we feel the urge to like block them or disengage from the conversation because it's easier to do that. However, in order to be good citizens of the world, we have to learn more about each other in order to make contributions that not only help people who are like us, but also help people who are very different. We have to learn more about people around the world. And with the internet, it's easy to do this. So if you do get into a discussion, I have some tips for you for how to make sure you get out of there safely and how you can learn the maximum amount of things. So, first, what you want to do is if you are arguing against a point, you should summarize their point first before finding any sort of rebuttal. Try to tell them that you want to understand them. Come to the common agreement of understanding. It's often also good to take these messages to private direct messages because you are freed from the pressure of the public eye, which could lead to more enlightening and more carefree discussions. And of course, be polite. But if the other person is being consistently harmful and derogatory and just a bad person in general, then of course you can block and disengage. When you're creating, never limit yourself to one single source, to one single product. Let's say you want to make art out of like Chinese materials. You don't have to make something Chinese. You can make blue-haired Mona Lisa riding on a scooter. Like that works because meaningful cultural exchanges are very good for the world. That's what the United Nations is. That's what the internet was created to be. So many of us today are connected by Ethernet wires and satellites on this planet we called Earth. So many of us are mosaics of all these components from different parts of the world combining and creating dissonance sometimes, but also harmony in how they exist and make you, well, you. We have potential. We have potential for change. We have potential for growth. We have potential for connection. And harmony does exist in you. Harmony does exist in dissonance. And if someone puts on their shoes and walks into a house on the way there, I think that's fine. Thank you.